you can see what's going to happen. There's going to be a massive competition to attract capital and to attract Bitcoin, and by that extension, Bitcoiners. So all of these things that are welcoming are going to be done, and it'll be this huge competition. So possibly zero tax, possibly no capital gains. Hard to say. But the thing that most countries need to understand is you can't be the last one that opens up the door and says, here are all the conditions why you want to come here, because, someone will have done it before you. And then it's like, yeah, okay, well, now what? Like, yeah, okay, no capital gains here, but no capital gains in the US. Which place would I rather be? So the more disadvantaged you are in terms of attracting capital and attracting Bitcoin, the sooner the better for implementing some strategy that welcomes capital. And I think it's starting to be understood that money just can't be printed indefinitely out of nowhere, right? This is why I think that the left-leaning people in the US, Democrats, they're angry about Elon's cutting of their money printer, right? All the funds in US aid and everything like that. That was kind of like unlimited capital for them to deploy. And without that, maybe they're coming to the realization that money is actually important, that you can't just print it out of thin air or take it from the rich or tax from the rich, because it won't work. But maybe this is sort of a wake-up call. And I think it's also a wake-up call for many countries to understand the nature of the business they're in. They are in the business of running the country to grow, to attract money. And that's really what they have to focus on. And I think in the course of politics and everything, you get distracted, just like normal people get distracted by everything else. They get distracted from the core premise, which is we need to attract capital and we need to attract investment. And if you look at El Salvador as an example, it's really not hard. Just do some things that are not stupid and say good things about Bitcoin, and people will pay attention and they might move there. They might set up a company there or domicile there or do all these sorts of things. But from our experience talking with a lot of politicians, it's like they don't understand that. One that we talked to, I forgot where it was. I think it's somewhere in the Caribbean. But the whole call was like, we need things. We need roads. We need hospitals, and we need this. And then another group we talked to was saying, yeah, we're creating great legislation and we're going to regulate everything. And I'm like, but what makes me want to go there? Like, if you think about it from a very simple mental model, like, that's your house, Brandon, and you wrote a lot of rules for what I can do in your house, but you're not inviting me for dinner. There's no food. Why do I want to go to your house? To like read your rules and say, okay, I can sit on that chair for 15 minutes and then I have to go and stand over there. That's not really interesting for me, right? So I think almost part of what we do is kind of educating the politicians and governments on how the world really works and why people would care to put their capital or their Bitcoin in that country.
Yeah, it's such a great way to put it, and really cap a lot of the discussion we've had here, which is you can't forget that governments have to attract. You can't have brain drain, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You can't have brain drain. You need to attract capital. If government's not in bed with Bitcoin somehow, some way, whether it's they're accepting of Bitcoiners, capital gains, legal tenders, whatever it is, you're gonna have people leaving, and that is not good for a country. So you said that so well. What regions? I mean, it's kind of weird saying U.S. has SBR now, all out of nowhere. I guess in the turn of events the last 6 months, and Trump wins the election. But what regions are you looking at where you're like, man, there's some people that get it here, and they've got some stuff going on. What regions of the world?
I would say there's a lot of regions, and they're starting to wake up. I don't want to specify and jinx our initiatives, but you know, there's a lot more interest now, and I think timelines are being stepped up because of Trump. And so, just taking a step back, like a lot of people are just waiting for the U.S. to do something. The politicians we engage with in a lot of places, they're all like, "We're very conservative, and we can't do anything. We'll see what the U.S. does." And you would think that that would be not so common, but it's very common. And it was also the same with the ETFs. The Hong Kong ETFs launched only after the US ones, and then Australia followed after that, because nobody wants to be first because it's risky. And the biggest factor I would say is career risk. It applies to corporates and countries too. Nobody wants to risk being the crazy guy saying Bitcoin and lose their job and not get reelected. So it's almost like the incentives are to play it safe and follow. But at the same time, they don't really understand that Bitcoin is incredibly scarce with only 21 million. So there is a first mover advantage. And it seems to be like those two forces going head to head, the inertia of career risk won out. And it's just going to be they're going to follow, and it takes a lot of time for governments to do things, right? They're almost like strung up by their own rules and procedures where they can't move quickly, and there's pros and cons with that. But you compound that by waiting for someone else like the US to make a move, and then the question really is, how fast can you react once the US goes? But you can already see these wheels turning in the US. They're moving as quickly as I've seen any government move. And David Sachs was saying the Trump admin is moving at a startup pace, which is probably accurate. But once the mechanisms to acquire Bitcoin are in place, either from Commerce Secretary Lutnick or from the legislation from Cynthia Lummis, I think that's when the other guys are going to pick up and try to go fast. But the question is really, how effective will a fast follow be? And who's going to be the fastest to follow? Those are the questions that need to be asked.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, then check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.